Let us begin a new chapter today, which is one of the most common topic of the chemistry in general. The topic is acid, bases and salts. Now, this topic has been used before this class 10 also, although it is in the second chapter of class 10, but this has been used before that also. So it is a known topic not only to the students but even those who are not really associated with science. They also used to encounter these particular topics, acid, bases and salts. Before going into this chapter, few instructions regarding the video. First, you see it in the highest probable quality, just to see the blackboard, the whiteboard properly. Second is that there will be assignments in between the video itself. You pause the video onto that particular point, note down the assignments in the classwork copy. In the classwork copy itself you can do, and there you must write down the answers. If there is any query, better you put the questions under the comment section of the video itself, so that others who are observing the video can also see it. Thirdly, the previous chapter, the NCERT problems of the previous chapter are supposed to be solved. We will have a prolonged discussion on the previous chapter's NCERT in between sometime, but let us continue with this chapter on this note. We will be starting the discussion first of all defining the acid. Now, our common perception of what is an acid. We used to say, from the knowledge of the previous class, if you reopen the book of the previous class, you will get to know that it was written which taste sour. So the taste itself was defining the acid, and it was also written that the bases are like bitter in taste. But in class 10, our definition of acid will be completely different. We will stop defining the acid and bases in terms of their taste, because taste itself is not a chemical way of defining acids and bases. So let us see. So first of all, we are going to define the acid. Defining acid. So three different concepts will be discussed. First is Arrhenius concept. Second is Bronsted and Lowry concept. And the third is Lewis concept. So there are three different ideology of the school of thoughts, you can say, of defining the acids. They are correct in their way. What is their input or you can say the usefulness while defining the acid? Let us discuss one by one. Remember, this discussion of us is not only for the regular board exams, even beyond that also, if you want to give any competitive exams, there also this will help. So let us discuss them little bit in details compared to the book. So we will start off with this Arrhenius concept. What is an Arrhenius concept? That the substances or the compounds which on dissociation in aqueous medium gives rise to H plus ions, or in some of the books it is written as H3O plus ions. It is called hydronium ions. So Arrhenius concept for acid we are discussing. And for bases also it was said that for bases the substances or compounds which on dissociation in aqueous medium generates OH minus or hydroxyl ion. Now let us see why it has been said or whether it is correct or not. So first you note it down. Now here you see if we take a very well-known acid, say HCl, or if you take H2SO4, in aqueous medium, if you take H2O also, HCl will be dissociated into H3O plus Cl minus. Here also it will be dissociated into H3O plus SO4 2 minus. Now the point is, here it might be 2 and here also it might be 2. That's a different thing. But the main thing is the generation of this H3O plus ions will be there. This is called hydronium ion, as I have said. Hydronium ion. And these are the responsible for the acidity. Without aqueous medium also you can think of it. Suppose I take HNO3. Without writing water actually, it can give rise to H plus and NO3 minus. So this H plus is being generated. The main thing that I want to say is, here one thing is particular, that the aqueous medium, that means the water is required. Without water, the Arrhenius concept of acidity is said to be incomplete. Remember, here we are writing HNO3, we are not using water, but water is actually there. We are showing the dissociation without using water, but water is present in the solution. Means it is a solution of HNO3 only. So that means, in a nutshell, we can say that the generation of H3O plus or H plus ions, whoever can do, is said to be acid. And as you know, that all these three acids are also called mineral acids. In the mineral acids, the tendency of dissociation or the strength of the acid is usually higher. We are going to discuss about that later on. So this is all about acids. Now let us see the case of the bases. We note it down. Now let us talk about the bases. Very well-known bases are like sodium hydroxide, calcium hydroxide, or magnesium hydroxide. If you add water in excess everywhere, that means if you prepare their aqueous medium, they are going to dissociate. I am not using this part in the equation, it is understandable. The NaOH is going to be dissociated into Na plus plus OH minus. You can include the water also, but I am not using, because water solution or the aqueous solution it is, and we are believing that the calcium oxide or sodium hydroxide or magnesium hydroxide is getting dissociated. So it is calcium hydroxide now. It forms Ca2 plus plus 2OH minus. Here also it is Mg2 plus 2OH minus. Here also one thing is in common, that the generation of this hydroxyl ions. The generation of these hydroxyl ions are actually the essence of the defining bases. If anyone can do so, it is supposed to be called the Arrhenius base. According to the modern concepts, since so many concepts have arrived, whoever follows the Arrhenius concept, if it is an acid, it is said to be Arrhenius acid. If it is a base, it is said to be Arrhenius base. The next theory regarding the acid base is known as the Bronsted and Lowry concept. Carefully see, it is not there in every book, but it is very important one. This concept suggests that acid and base, acid they are saying as proton donor, and to base they are saying as proton acceptor. Let us see to it. Suppose according to our common perception, HCl for an example, HCl will dissociate as H plus and Cl minus. Now since it can donate H plus, which is a proton of course, it is an acid. And similarly, suppose anything, say we talk about and while saying about base, it is saying it is a proton acceptor. So suppose we take this reaction, H plus plus OH minus giving rise to H2O. So OH minus, this species is accepting proton. So according to Bronsted, HCl is an acid, while OH minus, it is a proton acceptor, it is a base. Here you have already seen that it is an ionic compound, it is an ion. Although it is an ion, it is not neutral. Still, Bronsted and Lowry concept could able to define this species as acid and base, which was not the case with Arrhenius. In Arrhenius, we were talking about the neutral compounds which were getting dissociated into acids and bases. Whether it was acids or base, we can only able to define from the Arrhenius with the help of its aqueous solution. But here in this case, even without the aqueous solution, we were able to say about the acidity or basicity. In this particular case, remember we are talking about an ion being acid or base, which is the first of its kind. Now I will just draw one thing. Suppose I take HA plus B. Now it will be dissociated as, let us chalk it out. We know that HA will be giving rise to H plus plus A minus, and the B will combine with H plus to give rise to BH plus, right? So let us write it down. So it is giving rise to A minus and BH plus. So it is giving rise to A minus plus, rather I should write A minus in red because it is coming out of red only. A minus plus B H plus. So clearly from this diagram, it is clear that the HA is losing a proton. It is a proton donor. So it is said to be acid. And the B, which is losing, which is accepting H plus, this one, it is said to be a base. So again, acid loses proton, base accepts proton. I hope it is clear. After knowing the Bronsted acid and Bronsted base, there are two more species that we are going to know. One is conjugate. Let us erase this part. That is, one is conjugate base, another is conjugate acid. Now, what is a conjugate base? Acid, after losing H plus, whatever remains, that is a conjugate base. So according to this theory, this part is conjugate base. CB I am writing. So if I take, say for an example, HA, when it loses H plus and A minus, this becomes the conjugate base. If I take HCl, when it loses H plus, the Cl minus remains, it becomes the conjugate base. If I take HNO3, for the same logic, it loses H plus and NO3 minus remains, so this is the conjugate base. So conjugate base it is. Remember, another concept at the same point of time I would like to let you know is the stabler is the conjugate base, stronger is the acid. This is a very, very important concept which will help you out not only in class 10 but later on in the higher classes also. What does it suggest? See, here in all the cases, after losing H plus, whatever remains we are defining that as conjugate base, and that logic suggests that A minus is also conjugate base. Fine. This concept suggests that suppose this species, after losing H plus, if this remaining species, which we are calling as conjugate base, if this part is stable, if A minus, Cl minus or NO3 minus is stable, what does it mean? They will try to lose H plus as soon as possible, because the tendency of every compound is to become stable. So every species, after losing H plus, if the conjugate base is stable, they will lose H plus more quickly, which means that they are a better acid. Now, what is a conjugate acid? It is a, suppose here you see, if I take OH minus, in case of conjugate acid, suppose for an example, Cl minus is taken, that is combining with H plus. Whatever forms, here HCl is formed. So this becomes a conjugate base. Means after combining with H plus. Similarly, if I take HCO3 minus, if it combines with H plus, it becomes H2CO3. So it becomes a conjugate acid. So conjugate acid means, in this particular case, this B, which is a base, after combining with H plus, whatever it is formed, it is called conjugate acid. So species after combining with H plus, whatever forms. And remember, after combining with H plus means bases after combining with H plus, whatever they form. So bases after combining with H plus, whatever it forms a conjugate acid. So Bronsted-Lowry concept is also remembered as conjugate acid base theory. So better you remember this part, it should be alright. Means forget about this, just remember this part. This will be the total story. After these two theory, the third one that we are going to read is the Lewis acid base theory. And this is really different compared to the previous two. Why it is different? In both the previous cases, we were depending on one particular thing, which is dissociation. There, we were talking about either the ionic species or the water was necessary, or the compounds should have hydrogen atoms present within them or OH present within them, whatever. In this case, all these possibilities, all these requirements are not there. It is much more generalized concept, and it is applicable not only to inorganic part of the chemistry, but also to the vivid section or the broader section of the chemistry. So this is, I would say, a much more generalized, much more vast concept of acids and bases, and obviously the modernized one. For that, we have to understand two things. Is that first is Lewis acid. Lewis acid and Lewis base, we can simultaneously define. Lewis acids are those who is having the ability to accept lone pair of electrons. All of you must be knowing what is a lone pair of electrons. And Lewis base means ability to donate lone pair of electrons. Interestingly, the ability to accept or donate the lone pair of electrons is the essence of Lewis acidity and basicity. So just to redefine what is a lone pair, we are going to observe this species, ammonia. We are going to see ammonia. So here we have 3 hydrogen and 1 nitrogen. Nitrogen we know is having 5 electrons, right? So I am drawing those 5 electrons. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And each hydrogen will have only 1 electron, the red one. Now we know the target will be to complete the octet, but in case of hydrogen they are happy to fill up the doublet only, so it needs only 2 electrons. This hydrogen also 2 electrons. This hydrogen also 2 electrons. All the hydrogens are stable now. But nitrogen, you see, these 5 green electrons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8. So they will cover up. They will cover up all these electrons. Nitrogen will be using all these electrons. Now only they are fulfilling the octet. But the speciality of these 2 electrons are, they are not participating in the bonding. So they are available for donation. So these are electrons available for donation. That is why these are called lone pairs. So that is why NH3, this particular species, with the lone pair of nitrogen, they can able to donate the electrons, and it is called Lewis base. Similarly, let us take the example of BCl3, boron trichloride. BCl3. BCl3, the chlorine will have, chlorine belongs to group 17, so in the outermost shell according to class 10, although in higher classes we don't talk about this shell and all, so it is having 7 electrons each. So I am drawing 7 electrons of chlorine. Okay, here also. So chlorines are done. Now boron belongs to group 13, so it will have only 3 electrons. 1, 2 and 3. The target of all the atoms will be to complete the octet. Let us see whether it can do so or not. So chlorine 7 already, it needs 1 more, so it will take this electrons, it will share this electron. It will share, boron will share its electron with chlorine. Here also the same thing. Octets are fulfilled, we check, it is 8. Here also it is 8. What will be the fate of boron? Boron is only having 1, 2, 3 electrons. Since chlorine has shared 1, 2, 3 more electrons, so boron at most can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 electrons. This is the at most boron can do. So it is now having how many electrons? 6 electrons. So it needs 2 more. It is basically not completed its octet, so it needs 2 more electrons. So it is having the capability of accepting the electron. So it is electron deficient. It needs electron. That is why it can accept lone pair of electron, and that is why it is called Lewis acid. So at last I would like to say that NH3 is a Lewis base, and BCl3, as we have written, similar compounds are also there, is called Lewis acid. And if we draw something like this, BCl3, where boron requires electron, and on the other side if we draw NH3, it is having lone pair, so this can donate to boron. This species we call as, very interesting name, Lewis acid base adduct. This particular species, this donated, this lone pairs it can able to donate and boron can accept, and they form a compound by this particular bond. Later on we are going to see that this is called the coordination bond also. This is called as Lewis acid base adduct. So today we have mostly defined the acid. What is the acid? How many types? What are the way of defining acids? In the later half we will see the classifications of acid. So we are, up to now we have studied the various way of defining the acid, out of which I have discussed Arrhenius, Bronsted-Lowry concept and Lewis acid base concept.